World Bank officials, employees, we are here again as we have been doing for the past few years to come and ask and request that you stop funding the dictatorship in Uganda.
Yes.
The dictatorship of Yoweri Museveni. Recently, I think just last week, the World Bank, you gave Museveni almost $600 million, actually almost $600 million, supposedly to fund infrastructure and waste management in Uganda. This is shortly after the Chitezi landfill disaster. You've been giving Museveni money for infrastructure management for the past several decades. As you know, Museveni has been in power for almost 40 years, but there is nothing to show for all the billions of dollars that the World Bank and IMF have extended to Uganda. And then you, World Bank and IMF, held Museveni for good management, for competent management, while the affectionate world show the opposite. The schools have no roofs. The children are standing under trees. Hospitals have no medicine. Women are dying in childbirth. No improvement over 40 years. In fact, the health sector has gotten worse under Museveni. The educational system has gotten worse under Museveni. In East Africa, Ugandan school children are the least performing students when they take numeracy and literacy tests. So Uganda's request, it was once revered for its educational system. And people from Kenya and Tanzania and Morocco, Africa would send their children to Uganda to study because they thought the education system in Uganda was good. But since the World Bank structural adjustment programs, Uganda's system is being run to the dogs. What happened? When the structural adjustment program that you proposed were implemented, what happened? Museveni and his police bought up all the institutions. They privatized to themselves all the governmental institutions. And what has happened is they didn't have the capacity to manage them and they run them down. There was no employment. A lot of Ugandans are going to the Middle East. They're being enslaved in the Middle East because they lack employment. Most of the graduates, over 90% of the graduates in Uganda cannot find jobs. So they end up either doing odd jobs or running to the Middle East. And you would think that perhaps the economy, they could create opportunities. But Museveni has created such a situation whereby indigenous people cannot survive in business. It taxes them so highly while favoring the foreigners who give tax holidays. So the taxes are so high, the conditions so poor that the graduates cannot even start businesses because the situation is impossible. So they end up going to the Middle East. So since January 2022, Uganda has not had a substantive central bank governor. In January 2022, the former governor of the Bank of Uganda, died, and since then, Museveni has not appointed a new governor of the Bank of Uganda. The Bank of Uganda is a central bank, but it has no head, no substantive head. But meanwhile, the World Bank and IMF has continued to give Museveni money. So what do they say? That's what we say. Any money that the World Bank and IMF send to Museveni is odious state. Odious state. We should not be paying back that money because the money is being used, it's either being stolen or it's being used to suppress our rights, kill people, and cause a whole bunch of havoc. There is no improvement in likely no improvement in roads, no improvement in schools. Basic infrastructure is just rotting. And the example of Chitezi collapse, which killed so many people, is another indication that the money that the World Bank and IMF are giving to Museveni is not doing what it's supposed to do. And actually, what has happened recently, there's been a lot of exposure of huge corruption scandals, and the US and Europe have imposed sanctions on individuals supporting corruption. In 2023, Transparency International ranked Uganda 141 out of 180 countries in corruption, meaning it's near the bottom in terms of corruption. Meanwhile, the World Bank and IMF continue to give Museveni money. Again, we say that is obvious debt. We should not be paying back that money. It's being used to suppress us, it's being used to oppress us. So, World Bank and IMF, we don't want your money. What we want is sanctions. We want any aid to Museveni to stop. Recently, the World Bank said that they're gonna ensure that any new money to Uganda does not suppress the LGBT community. You know, so basically, what about the human rights? We've been talking about human rights for Ugandans as a whole, as opposed to just a section of you know. We value human rights for everyone, LGBT and everyone else in Uganda. But by saying that, so long as the LGBT are not affected, you're going to continue giving money to Uganda, to the regime that steals it, that it indebts our people. The debt burden is so high that our future and future generations are being indebted to no end. We won't have the capacity to pay back that money, but you continue giving money to Museveni because it's, I guess, supposedly advancing Western interests. We are tired. We are tired. And we're saying that money is odious debt. We should not be paying that money back because it's not, there's no real return to that money. So we are sick and tired. Recently, the IMF in June said they're not going to give Uganda the last installment of the ECF, the Economic Facility Fund that was approved in 2020. Uganda was allocated $1 billion. But the condition was that Uganda had to adhere to anti-corruption measures and to make sure the human rights are being respected. But all through the several installments that IMF gave to Uganda, the human rights situation has continued to get worse. But recently, the IMF said they're not going to have the gap up to 870 million of the 1 billion, and they said we're not going to give the last installment because Uganda failed to meet the requirements. But the question is, why now? Why did they continue giving Uganda all the money over the years? That's because Uganda had not yet, come out to the streets like they did this year to expose the corruption in parliament, to expose the corruption in the Museveni regime, which IMF has all long known, and we've been coming to the World Bank and IMF, pointing out the corruption, pointing out all the corruption scandals that have been happening over the 40 years of Museveni rule. But the World Bank and IMF continue extending loans, indebting our children, indebting us, and keeping our schools and roads in tatters because the money that the World Bank is giving to Museveni is being stolen. So we are saying enough is enough. We don't want odious debt. We do not want odious debt. Stop funding our oppression. Stop funding our oppression. So no to more loans from the World Bank and IMF. What we want is sanctions on the Museveni regime, and then Uganda will be able to liberate themselves from the yoke of Museveni's imperialism. Thank you so much.
People power.
People power.
Power.
Our power.
People power.
People power.
Our power.
Our power.
People power.
Stop funding dictators.
Stop funding dictators.
Stop funding dictators.
Yeah.
Let me stop.